Hey everyone, Reed here at Big Strong Book, here today to talk about The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. This is one of the novels in her Hainish series, and it is collected here. I have the Library of America edition of all of the novels, novellas, and short stories in that universe, and this happens to be part of Volume 1, along with Rokenen's World, Planet of Exile, City of Illusions, The Left Hand of Darkness, which I've reviewed on this channel, and some collected short stories. Now, The Dispossessed is one that, when you hear of Le Guin, The Dispossessed is one of the first standout novels that you might hear about. And this was one that kind of came out in, as she was, it still feels like she was still in the early stages as a writer. You know, Le Guin was somebody who I don't believe published her first novel until the late 60s. And this was published, I think, in 73 or 74. But she was reaching almost a mature phase in her career. Maybe she just kind of started out right off the bat, like a very grounded in terms of confidence in her style. She's like a very confident, clear creator, clear author. And The Dispossessed is a product of that, I think, as she had a handful of novels already under her belt at this time. Things in the Hainish series, things in Earthsea, and a few others, I think, as well. And if you're familiar to this channel, you'll know that I love the works of Le Guin. I've read 3 installments in the Earthsea series. Again, as I mentioned before, I've read The Left Hand of Darkness, and so reading The Dispossessed, I was hoping it would kind of it would sustain the pattern of excellence that I had come to know from Le Guin, and this did not just sustain the pattern of excellence; it exceeded it. It set a new, it raised the bar. It set a new benchmark for what I now will come to expect from her. The Dispossessed is subtitled "An Ambiguous Utopia," and it takes place in this area of the Hainish universe where we have, and I'm gonna look just to double check I get the planet names correct, because I'm gonna refer to them quite a bit in here. We have the planets of Urras and Anarres. That's how I'll pronounce them. Urras was, and both of them are one. The populations of each planet consider themselves kind of like an Earth, and the other one a moon. And Urras was formed in the pattern of, you know, a very, I would say perhaps traditional, in a broad sense, very capitalist collection of nations, similar to what we would find in the Western Hemisphere certainly today. And in the planet of Anarres, kind of about 150, 160 years prior to the events of the novel, there was a revolution on Urras that then spilled over as a collection of people then colonized Anarres with the goal of building a utopia of sorts, a kind of a perfect utopia. And that utopia has continued for 160 years, or at least this kind of anarchist, I would call it, a state, but of course, as it is, there's no collective, there is no state, but as we see in this book, there's still very much so a presence of control that the characters deal with. Now, I'm going to look for the other name. I finished this a few days ago, and so my memory of the specific names kind of they start to fade after a few days of being removed from the work. But we have this figure who has taken on a kind of mythical quality, a character named Odo. And Odo was this revolutionary, and she was imprisoned on Urras, and I believe died on Urras, if I remember correctly, and is almost the figurehead of this colonized planet Anarres. They look to her, they look to her writings as complete wisdom and guidance. They don't have a religion on Anarres, but this might as well be their religion, and she is kind of their messianic figure for this utopia that they are to sustain. Now, the novel begins with an interesting action. We have a man from this anarchist state leaving it and traveling to Urras. He is the first to travel from Anarres to Urras. And right away, she sets the stage within this port scene in the first chapter, in this walled city, where things are allowed in, but nothing. They trade, but no people come out. No people from Anarres until Shivek, our protagonist. Excuse me. And he goes to the planet of Urras, in a mode of an exchange of ideas. He goes, in part to kind of fulfill this desire for greater unity between these two worlds. But as we learn, as the novel progresses, and as the story really takes hold, he's also going, because of a level of personal unfulfillment. And back and forth we go through this book. Pretty much all of the odd numbered chapters focus on his time, Shivek's time in Urras, as an alien, as a tourist, as a figurehead, as we'll see in a little bit. And the even numbered chapters kind of track the course of his life on Anarres as he gets to the place, as he gets to the point, where he's about to leave, as he does at the beginning of the book. And Shivek is a physicist who desires for his ideas, for his work to be used for good, and he doesn't want this work, as any creative or intellectual goes through. He does not want his ideas to be stifled, to be mismanaged, or to be misguided. And Shivek runs into these barriers kind of early in his life, with these mentors who are a great deal of help to him at first, but who impede him. And as he kind of struggles under the yoke of control from, even though it is an anarchist society, there is still a level of direction. It is not just everybody, and they're in a state where it has lasted for 160 years, and perhaps the cracks are beginning to show. We have characters that Shivek knows, individuals who are into music writing, or there's a character who writes a play, and the play is not up to the proper standards of the image that the collective essentially wants to convey. And so he is in that manner. He is not suppressed, because they would not call it suppressed. He is rather directed elsewhere. It is still a level of control, and as Shivek finds himself, having to take on these positions and jobs, because in this kind of collectivist anarchist society, everybody must do everything. Everybody must work and kind of go everywhere, in the essence, for the greater good. There's a great passage within this book of, and there's just beauty, and I should get it out of the way. There's absolute beauty in the way that Guin writes in such an utterly empathetic way. And I don't remember if I mentioned that exactly within my review for The Farthest Shore, but it is that type of just lingering gaze that she provides within the scenes she builds and the landscapes that she paints with her words. There's a section where a drought has happened on Anarres, and the pain that Shivek must undergo, especially as he is estranged from individuals he cares about, and it is separating himself from those individuals and from his work. But he must do it for the greater good, because he cannot, in this kind of society where you cannot put your own even understandable, but in a word, selfish interests in the light of the group. And this is something that starts to grow in him as he realizes that he is this individual who desires to do good, but wants there's that kind of natural possessiveness that humans have when it comes to, of forming a relationship with somebody and wanting to be kind of centered in that relationship. But it is in a society that kind of cuts a line in that, and Le Guin kind of pulls back. Le Guin is not, she is not condemning one system over another. I don't believe she is doing that. That's why this is subtitled An Ambiguous Utopia. It is what one would think is a utopia, where the individual can has the freedom to do as they want, but yet there is. I wouldn't say Le Guin is completely pessimistic about the idea of an anarchist utopia, but maybe that the idea of utopia cannot fundamentally exist, perhaps because that means different things for different people, perhaps because that means that there must always be some sort of level of control, and that control in the service of the greater good must mean that things are suppressed, which might be necessary, but the those in the panel don't see it as such, which Chevek enters into with wanting to try to build a pipeline to Urras. And in the chapters where he is in Urras, he finds that they still wish to control him, to kind of corral his ideas towards serving the state rather than serving the greater good. In this, it is the state's aims, because states wage war. They are constantly in a sort of diplomatic dance, and he does not want his ideas to be in service towards that. And he finds himself spiraling in this kind of environment. He is a man without possession, a man without money, but he must operate in a society where capital is king, where money is king, and that is something that is so foreign to it. And I think in Le Guin, again, while not outright condemning it as an evil, perhaps states, what are we when we are in these interactions fueled by our capital, and there is something to, and she gets on the line of, Urras is a capitalist kind of society where it is openly a type of patriarchal society. Women are suppressed in education, in agency and ownership, and the opposite is true, of course, on Anarres. Being a utopian society, there is an inequality of the sexes, so to speak, but taking it further as his discomfort grows, he is discomforted by the inequality that he finds on Urras, but then he must also, as the first contact, in a sense, the alien, the tourist, he must be the figurehead. He becomes a figurehead for himself, and because there is a bubbling, it is referred to as a socialist movement, but a bubbling revolutionary movement, and that is something that as Chevek talks to individuals on Urras, he mentions that Anarres is kind of it's a perpetually revolutionary society, and even though these individuals in these underground communities, they have the writings of Odo, the writings of this old figure, Chevek is here before them, and he almost kind of he revels in that at first, but then there's kind of these very violent sequences of state's suppression of these protests, of these demonstrations, and he is a firsthand witness to the violence that it creates, and I guess rightly so, it terrifies him, it mortifies him. He is just somebody who has ideas and wants to work on them, wants to express them, and not be told to what end his ideas are used or what value they contain. it is such an affirming novel. Not only is it empathetic in its portrayal of these characters, and in the portrayal of an individual's purpose, but it is Le Guin is kind of soaring in her in how we are to be, because there's that innate need for love, for recognition, for moving forward in a way that is unitive, that I think everybody to a degree can get behind, but it is difficult. And Chevek, in trying to crest those hills and trying to crest those barriers, he comes to that understanding. He comes to that that type of peace of mind. And yeah, this is just, I know I could go on and on and on about this, but it is just a marvelous work, in this cross comparison of societies, and the individuals kind of beholden to their norms, beholden to their structures, and that even though these, whether it is a literal kind of bureaucratic state, or whether it is more of in a sense, free utopian, anarchistic, collectivist society, it is made up of these individuals, and these individuals with their own wants, with their own desires, and how do they communicate that? How do they operate within that? What is necessary? What is good in these circumstances? Questions that you could forever wrestle with. But I'll keep it brief here, and give it my highest recommendation. I mean, this was remarkable. It is yet another remarkable entry that I've read from Le Guin, and in a way that this, as I mentioned earlier, it sets a new bar. It increasingly just, her works get richer and richer as I go from one to the next. So as I've said before many times, I think with each one of her novels that I've read, I look forward to seeing where this journey continues to go. So, The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. If you have read it, let me know what you think, and as always, I will see you guys next time.